Kimberley is a Fellow of Swansea University Medical School and an award-winning former BBC filmmaker. She's now Creative Director of Pocket Medic, which is responsible for producing high-quality film, working with award-winning filmmakers and graphic animators to provide healthcare information in an innovative way. So we're delighted to hear more I'm very excited to hear more about this as well. So thank you very much, Kimberley. Okay.
Hello everyone, and thank you also for inviting me here to speak to you today. So we've come up with this thing called Pocket Medic, and what we do is we create series of films to help patients understand more about self-managing chronic disease. That's our aim. We've been doing it now for a couple of years, and slowly it's spreading. We use clinicians, healthcare professionals across the board, primary, secondary, community care, to prescribe films to their patients so that patients feel that it's very much part of what they need to do. We work very much with clinicians. It tries to be always evidence-based, and if anything changes, we change it as quickly as we can to make sure we stay up to date. And the reason why I'm here particularly to talk to you today is because we're really interested in collaborating with people like yourselves to make more content. And so far, we've made series about diabetes, lymphedema, heart failure, chronic pain. We've made some films about pressure ulcer management. And the next series that we're interested in making is around obesity. And it's an interesting one because, of course, as you know, it cuts across so many chronic conditions that it's probably one of those series where it'll be very much we will need input from people across all conditions to help us make the right kind of films. So where did it all start? I used to work for the BBC. I think I'm on what's called my second career now. I've worked for the BBC for what seemed like an enormously long time. And I used to be a documentary maker, and for 10 of the years I was at the BBC, I looked after comic relief with all those long form and short form films working with Richard Curtis, which was very exciting. And I met lots of very famous people and memorably spent a week in Peru with Victoria Beckham, which was very, very interesting. But what I particularly learned is that you could use storytelling, real people's experiences to explain complex issues like international development issues suddenly become a little bit clearer when you follow the story of a person living in one of the poorest parts of the world who's trying to tackle something. And inevitably, I found myself ending up filming in hospitals and seeing people usually dying from a preventable disease, and I'd sort of think, gosh, this is terrible. And wouldn't it, of course, it's always terrible, but wouldn't it be great if we could use all these methods of filmmaking which we use to raise money, but wouldn't it be great also if we could use these methods of filmmaking to help people understand more about their illnesses so that perhaps they could do something to help self-manage or recognise when a condition was at a critical point so perhaps they could tackle it before it got too serious. Perhaps what I consider my best success, I suppose, was I made a film with David Tennant, one of those stories following children in a hospital suffering from malaria, and it made £5 million in the 5 minutes after it went out. So that was a great achievement. I'm very proud of that. And obviously it was all down to David Tennant, but that was a good experience. But we also used a lot of graphics and illustration, and that always helps. We realised too that really helps land the points. So video, short stories, patient stories, engagement, visual aids. But why now? Well, you've got to look at those questions now as a little bit of audience participation. Have a look at those questions and see whether you think the answers to all of those questions are going to be all A, all B, or all C. Any votes for A? Any votes for B? One vote, thank you, Mary. Any votes for C? And it'll come as no surprise, of course, that the answer's C. And any of you, well, all of us probably spend an enormous amount of time on our telephones. And my children, I've got teenagers, they spend all the time. If they want to know something, they go to YouTube now. So video is becoming a really good way of sharing information. And this I find astonishing. By 2020, as much content will be being made in a year as was made since the internet began. It's extraordinary. So next is to show you a little clip of the kind of films we make and the way we work with people and how we distribute the content.
Pocket Medic helps your patients learn more about managing their health, complementing information provided by you, the clinicians.
So we're making some incisions in foresight to unload some of the lymphatic flow from here into the veins.
Expert patients and your NHS colleagues from all over the UK have worked with us to create these films. Data's showing that patients who watch them are changing their behaviour and improving their health.
This is an absolutely typical story. I've been working in lymphedema for 15 years. You just see it all the time.
I got really frightened at the start because my legs were sort of 4 or 5 times the stage they should have been, like, you know.
If your patient Googles diabetes on YouTube, nearly 1 million film options come up. With Pocket Medic, you're providing high-quality, curated content that is sent to patients from your surgery, clinic, or while you're out on the road. We have series of films to support patients with diabetes, COPD.
When I actually do something and I'm really out of breath, I sit down for about a minute, 2 minutes, and I'm back to normal then. You just got to get used to it and do not let it get you down.
This puts you in the driving seat to manage your symptoms. You are the expert on you.
Depression and anxiety.
Do all the things that you know you've done before, and hey presto, you can get your life back again.
Recovery from cancer. Heart failure. Chronic pain. And lymphedema.
You've already mentioned to me about being in the garden.
I love my garden.
Always wear those good, thick gardening gloves.
He's a lot more social. He's a lot easier to live with. He's got out of his chair. I've got my husband back again, yes.
The films can be watched on a mobile phone, tablet or computer. In response to feedback from healthcare professionals, we've created simple links to make the sharing of films quicker and easier. They can be sent to patients by text or in a letter. The letters and numbers here allow the collection of data to show how many of your patients have watched the films. This part of the link identifies the subject matter. When your patient clicks on the link, it'll take them to all the films in that series that they can watch as many times as they like with their families or carer. If you have any questions or suggestions, do get in touch.
So what we've tried to do is so when you've got a subject like if you've just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, you don't necessarily want to watch an enormously long film that tells you everything about it, but we've tried to, again, using the comic relief model in a way, is divide it up into short bite-sized pieces, and we've tried to find great people to share their experience and understanding. So I love that man, Alcuin, who tells us all about his COPD, and he's lovely and so charming, and when he tells you what he does, and you sort of think, oh gosh, I find myself doing the breathing with him when I'm watching the films. And it seems to be a really good way of getting the information over, and people tell us that they like to receive it that way. So we create a link that then can be shared with patients, and this is what they see when they get it. So you go onto the internet or on your phone and you get your series of films, and you can cherry pick and have a look at them and look at them again if you need. And the reason why we work through clinicians or healthcare professionals to get the film content to patients particularly is that we don't want to put it on the internet, because if you look up type 2 diabetes on the internet, there's over 1 million responses, and so perhaps you're not sure if the information is correct for you, if it's right. So we've created the content, and it's all been signed off by the NHS, by people, by yourselves, with all the different opinions and views and evidence base to try and make sure that it's up to date as possible and as correct as possible. And we've had a paper produced by Swansea University. We did a service evaluation where we showed the type 2 diabetes series to a group of patients. It wasn't an enormous group, but it was statistically significant. And there was an improvement in the glucose or the blood glucose control of the patients who watched the films. And so we were really pleased about that. It was a 1% improvement in their HbA1c, and apparently the pharmaceutical companies tell me that if they put a new drug on the market, they're really hoping for a 0.6% improvement with all the cost that comes with that. So here was something that we were sharing with patients, penny per patient for the NHS to have access to the film content, and achieving a 1% improvement in blood glucose control. So we were very encouraged by that. And then, so there was a 9, for those of you who know about these things, which you probably do, which is a 9 millimole per mole improvement. And then the more films that people watched, the better was the improvement, or the average improvement. We're sharing the films with an increasing number of people. So more and more people are using them and going back to them. 43% of people who view them then go back and look at them again. So all very encouraging. We make the films such that they are particularly targeted at people on point of diagnosis when they've got a lot of questions and they perhaps need all the information from the beginning. But we're also told by patients further down the line, maybe somebody who had type 2 diabetes for 20 or 30 years, that they find it a very useful refresher. And some of the lymphedema nurses use the films to train lymphedema nurses. So it's not just being useful for patients, which is also really encouraging. The way that we make the information as well, we use a lot of visuals. Visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text, and adding a visual increases retention of information over sixfold, from 10% to 65%. And it's a question of mindset, because if you give people some information like this, we all know that that information in itself is not enough to change behaviour. You have to understand the mindset of people and what it is that's stopping them change their behaviour in response to information. And we've done some work with this chap who's called who's Professor Robert Keegan from Harvard Graduate School. And he's created this program called Immunity to Change. And so he says, in order for you to change your behaviour, you have to really understand what's holding you back. And so when we're making our films, before we start making them, we sit with the clinicians and say, what is it that's stopping people adopt the behavioural change that you want? And then we try and very much build that into the films that we make. Visuals also help land the information really well, and this is an aspect of the films that we make that patients tell us that they really like. And also it's the kind of people that we include. So this is Jim, and he lives in a caravan in Rhyl, and he's an absolutely charming man, and he's in a film that we made about understanding being diagnosed as pre-diabetic. And it's one of the most regularly watched films. It's got one of the highest viewing figures. And we find it really interesting that people from different social demographics, people have got some fantastic communication skills, and somebody like Jim obviously speaks to a lot of people who are interested in pre-diabetes and understanding what it means. And this is Lisa, who we met on an expert patient course, who spoke very passionately about her troubles and challenges with food and what she's trying to do to change the way that she lives. And now I'm going to show you a little film. It's about 5 minutes long, so relax, but it's presented by a dietitian called Anna Parton from ABMU in Swansea. And I heard Anna talking to a group of patients at a lymphedema awareness day, and she spoke so straightforwardly, and she made everybody laugh, and she was completely honest, and I thought, wow, this woman will be brilliant. So we work with brilliant patient communicators, but we also work with some brilliant clinical communicators.
Supermarkets can be tricky places when you're trying to be healthy, and if you're trying to lose weight. And when you're shopping for a family, it's even harder to banish anything unhealthy from your trolley. But thinking about what you're going to buy is key, because losing weight from your body starts with your head. So today, I'm going to share a few ideas that might help you steer your trolley in the right direction to eat well and lose weight.
So I know this sounds absolutely crazy, but we're going to shop back to front. We're going to start at the back of the store and work forwards.
That way, when you're passing through temptation, you're still feeling fresh and motivated to resist. It is important to have a small amount of fat and oil in our diet.
However, and this is really important if you're trying to lose weight, fat is fat is fat is fat is fat. So whether it's a tablespoon of lard or a tablespoon of oil or a tablespoon of butter, it's exactly the same amount of calories. And if I tell you that a tablespoon of oil, which is not even the palm of your hand, it's 210 calories, which is a big fat chocolate biscuit. So good section, but got to be treated like gold dust. In fact, the fact that it's quite golden can remind you, good to use in really small amounts.
And the same goes for spreads.
So this is the section that I think confuses people more than any other part of the supermarket. You've got goose fat, butter, the polyunsaturated spreads, the monounsaturated spreads. It is an absolute minefield. So before you pick up one packet, you remind yourself, fat is fat is fat is fat is fat. which ones would I recommend that you use? To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter. Go for the lighter ones if you can. Now, there's a big discussion about whether or not we should be using butter. The problem with butter is that if you're a butter lover, you will like butter with bread, not bread with butter. My father used to use butter like cheese. When you put fat on your bread, it should be about the same amount as your thumb, okay? So you want to scrape it on and scrape it off. That's the one I'm going to get. Ready meals aren't all bad, but you've got to choose carefully. And I'm really pleased to see that I've found some ready meals that have the traffic light system here. So you're going to look for more greens and less amber and red. And so they look at fat, saturated fat, sugar and salt. So as you can see, this particular ready meal has more green than it has amber or red, so I know it's a healthy choice. Okay, here we go, fish pie. Now, I make a lovely fish pie, which is nice and low in fat. But you see, you've got to be careful because you see every single recipe is different. This one here is a bit of a luxury fish pie, a lot of red and amber, a higher amount of fat, saturated fat and salt in it. And if I look at the ingredients, yes, you see it's got double cream. And in fact, when you look at ingredients, the ones at the top are the ones that are most in the product. And as you go down, it gets less and less and less. Here we are. Now, I think most people know that nuts and seeds are really good for us.
But although nuts contain a healthy fat, it's still a fat, so they need to be eaten in very small amounts.
The problem with nuts is they have this effect, don't they? Once you start, you can't stop, and on and on and on and on, and then you go, oh, who's eating my peanuts? So the sort of portions that we're looking at is about 3 Brazil nuts, 4 or 5 almonds. You know, you're talking about tablespoons, not handfuls. Right. Now, lots of people are anti-starchy foods. It's a big trend at the moment, avoiding starch, but starches are really important in our diets. They give essential B vitamins, they keep our bowels working. Wholemeal and whole grain is better. Nice and high in fibre, keeps me fuller for longer. Definitely going to buy some of that.
And when it comes to rice, brown is best.
Here we are, brown rice. Really delicious, really nutty. So cooked amount, about what you can hold in your hand, really. That's sort of the portion. And actually your hand is a really good guide for portion sizes. So whether it's pasta or whether it's rice, you make a fist, you draw a circle round your fist. That's about the size of your stomach. So you can see how we over portion things all the time. Even though I'm encouraging you to eat lots of different healthy food groups, if you eat too many healthy foods, you're going to put on weight. And I'll get the shop's own brand because it's a little bit cheaper.
And that goes for wherever you shop. Now, Waitrose kindly let us film, but remember, own branded food in any supermarket is usually cheaper. And while we're talking about starchy food, just like whole grain pasta and brown rice, wholemeal bread isn't just the healthy option, it'll keep you fuller for longer.
Whole grain or whole meal is the whole of the seed. Whole meal, whole grain, it's the whole of the seed. That's what you're looking for, not brown. Brown is white bread coloured brown. So I think that's the one I'm going to get. Stone ground wholemeal bread. That looks delish.
Talking of delish, healthy eating has to be delicious too. Because to be able to stick to it, you have to enjoy it. So you want cheese? Buy cheese.
Could I have some Yorkshire Wensleydale with cranberries?
Yeah, of course.
Please. It's the portion size that matters.
If I could just have that in 2 bits of cling film, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah. She's portioned it for me, so she's taken all that decision away from me at home. I've chosen something which I absolutely wanted, which looked absolutely delicious. Fantastic, job done. Wonderful, thank you so much.
With other proteins, it can be a case of a little bit more of what you fancy.
The sort of portion size we're looking for fish is about checkbook size. So with fish, you can eat a little bit more than with meat. About the size of your palm is about you're looking for with meat. But with fish, you can eat a little bit more. So a nice big bit, a little bit bigger if you could. So So that's nice, trying to lose weight, and I'm asking for a bigger bit of food, so we like that. My food should be more beautiful, more delicious, more yummy than any other time, because it is hard resisting the things that you know you shouldn't perhaps be eating because they're slightly unhealthy. So thank you very much for that. Yummy. Although protein is really important, it's important to maybe once or twice a week have a non-meat meal, which is when we can have beans and pulses and lentils. And they're not expensive either. So a vegetarian diet is a very, very healthy diet, but you must not be what we call a lazy vegetarian. You've got to be careful. Nuts are very, very high in calories, and if you eat too many dairy foods, that can then make you put on weight. So yes, a vegetarian diet, but you've got to be still aware of the balance and portioning.
Vegetarian or non-vegetarian, we need 3 helpings of dairy foods every single day, but without overdoing our fat intake. There are many, many, many low-fat yogurts on offer to help us with that.
However, just because it's low fat doesn't necessarily mean it's low sugar. And sometimes diet products, they lower the calories by decreasing the fat, but they actually increase the sugar. You need to look at how many calories per pot. Again, huge variety of milk. What do we get? If you can't cope with going fully skimmed, you can go for semi-skimmed. The good news is the more skimmed you get, the higher the calcium. Now, I know I've got to be really conscious during this section, and I think that's so important when you switch on your conscious brain, that you think, do I really want the thing that I'm about to buy? And if you see something and you really want it, then you should allow yourself, but you must do this. You see something and you actually say, sometimes in your head, sometimes out loud, oh look, there's a pudding, I can have that. So try not to say to yourself, oh, I shouldn't have that, because as soon as somebody says to you, you shouldn't have something, you want it. So you say to yourself, I'm a grown-up, there's a pudding, I could have that if I wanted to. But you know what, just having this conversation with you in the camera, I've decided, do you know what, I don't really want it. I really want to get on top of my weight, I really want to eat healthily. So even though I can buy it, nobody's going to stop me, I choose not to.
Fruit and veg are the backbone of our diet. They are crucial. 5 a day should be the bare minimum. Vegetables in particular. But, and this is important,
please don't confuse these with fruit and vegetables. These are part of the starchy food group, okay? So they are good for you and they're really healthy for you, but not as one of your fruit and vegetables. Broccoli, love a bit of broccoli. Courgette, always nice to have that. What has been found is that if we can eat a range of different colours that are found in fruit and vegetables, we can get all these wonderful chemicals that protect us against cancer and heart disease and diabetes. So now I've got orange and I need some purple as well. Oh, some grapes. All you guys have to remember is, have I picked and am I eating a rainbow? Have I got a rainbow in my trolley?
And your trolley should look a bit like your meal at home, brimming with lovely fruit and veg. And you don't have to buy all your fruit and veg as fresh. You can buy tinned, frozen and things on special offer. Absolutely top tip for eating healthily is half veg, a quarter starchy carbs and a quarter protein. And go down a plate size.
Even if you don't change anything that you eat and drink, if you go down a plate size today, you will start to lose weight. So that now is a beautiful full plate of food, and as you can see, the balance is right. Small changes make a big difference. Often we don't want the unhealthy food. We're stressed, we're tired, we're unhappy, we're not actually hungry. So it's about engaging your conscious brain before making the decision whether or not to buy that thing. Best of luck.
So just finally, I just wanted to let you know the kind of responses we have from patients who watch the films that we make. And here's one which I particularly like, which makes it all the hard work feel worthwhile. And this lady wrote to me who was suffering with, who was living with breast cancer. And after she watched the series on surviving cancer, she wrote and said, "I cried with relief. Here was someone who really understands what's going on inside me." Another person wrote to me, "I live alone and I don't know anyone else with this condition." This was COPD. So I found it really helpful. And then a lady with type 2 diabetes wrote and said, "I found these little films very inspiring and helpful and will probably watch them again and again to keep me motivated and remind me what to do and what not to do." And the last bit, which I found particularly nice, she said, "And anyway, thanks for caring." So that's a fantastic way to reach patients, I think, at a time when NHS resources are under pressure and time, as I know from you, all of you clinical people, is at a premium in your consultations. So if you would like to talk to me later, I've got my details. I'd really love to hear from you, particularly if you've got any interest in helping us develop a series on obesity. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.